to our gathering here. Thanks everybody for showing up. I hope you all voted early and voted often, or not. It's actually cool. I used to do a lot of voting rights work, and one of the things I got involved with was different voting machine types. After the 2000 election, there was a lot of hubbub about whether machines were functioning and whether they were counting right. I've never seen this voting machine before. Just voted this morning, where it's like the plastic laminate. I don't know if it reads. And you push and you have the pressure. That was very cool. Never seen that. And of course, I like it. Just because I'm fascinated by it. My name is Stuart Comstock-Gay. I'm president of the Community Foundation here. I've been on the job 6.5 months, 7 months, and made the full transition to the city about a month ago. We are excited to be doing this with you. Most of you know Beth over here, Beth Michelle, who coordinates and runs our grants program. What we're doing this year is, yes, please. So you're gonna have the best view.
Anyone who has difficulty seeing that.
Yeah. And what we're doing here is, well, for starters, because we were changing the way we do some of our grants programs, let me take a step back. Community foundations, as some of you will know, we're kind of like the proverbial elephant with the blind people. Everybody knows a different piece of what we are, and we're trying to help tell that story a little bit more about the many different things we do. Community foundations as an institution are over 100 years old, started in Cleveland in 1914. There's 700 some community foundations in the country, and the idea is an aggregation of funds serving a place. So you'll have the Cleveland Foundation, the New York Foundation, the Silicon Valley Foundation, the Omaha Foundation, the Delaware Community Foundation, and we're all the same family, completely separate, but the idea is people who want to have philanthropic dollars serving the place, whether it's to support a particular organization, or arts programming in Dover, or environmental programming in Newcastle County, or whatever, can aggregate their funds. We help manage and support those funds, and then help people make grants to the things they care about and to support the things they are passionate about. We have some discretionary dollars, meaning those dollars are directed by staff and board with the committee, in our case, a volunteer committee that makes decisions about how those monies are distributed. That is one piece of the funds, and then there's all this other stuff also going out. What we're talking about here today is some of the discretionary money, and one of the very exciting programs is this collaborative grants program, where the board has said, we want some of this money every year going out to efforts that bring organizations together to work collaboratively to make a difference in the community. Andy Staton, who's the chair of our grants committee, is going to speak in a moment a little bit more about that, and you're also going to hear from Mary Hopkins later about how those decisions are made. But what we want to do today is talk about what we're trying to see from you all and how we can partner with you, because while we have some access to resources, you have the access to the ability to get things done. We don't, you guys do. And so we really get that you're the people you're delivering on product, delivering on outcomes. Big change this year for us is our use of data through starting with this Delaware Focus website. You're going to see more about that. I hope many of you had a chance to look at the website. But it's a website that this foundation launched about 10 months ago, 9.5 months ago, to create a broad indicators platform to say, here are things that tell the story about the quality of life in Delaware around economic issues, what is the unemployment rate, not just in the state, but in different counties and different cities, based on racial diversity questions, about kids' health and well-being, about the quality of arts, about the environment, about education. Across the board, we have 73 different indicators where we say, this we believe is an appropriate snapshot about what's the quality of, how we doing, right? The old Ed Koch thing, how we doing? And that's what this is about, and it's a different venture for this foundation. And what we're hopeful is that people start to say, you know what, I want to know a little bit about what's going on for kids in the state of Delaware. And they look at our 4 or 5 indicators, and then they're going to say, well, I want to know more. And we say, well, go to Kids Count, because they got all this stuff. All we've got is the very top tier. And we're trying to do that in all of these different areas. So what we're going to be asking you to do is take that data and say, in your proposals, and talk about collaboration. They also talk about, how am I making a difference, and how do I know the issue I'm working on matters, right? So you'll hear more about that, but that's a different thing. The other thing is, Delaware Community Foundation, as Delaware Community Foundation, has not done this kind of open discussion before, and we're hopeful that this is, well, we're committed that this is the beginning of a series of this kind of engagement activities with our partners on the ground. And again, our partners, you guys deliver. We provide just a little bit of catalyzing money and resource in grants, in connections, in convening, and you guys are going to help us understand how can things get done and what is effective and what is going to make a difference. So we're really excited about this, and we hope that you teach us how to be better at it, and we hope we can provide some value in this thing too, and in any case, that's what we're about. I'm going to stop with that. I'll do real quick introductions of some of the people here. Deb Burton, you'll hear more from her. She's our data guru about the Delaware Focus website, so you'll want to talk to her about different pieces. Allison Levine back here, she's going to be talking in a minute. Communications director, Andy, Mary Hopkins, Beth Bushell. I think that's all the staff people. And
Mary Hickok.
I'm sorry, I keep.
My very good friend.
Yes, I know. Excuse me, I have an email from Mary, which is why I keep thinking, but I need to respond to Mary. So I apologize, Mary Hickok. Thank you, Beth. And Mary. So with that, I'm going to introduce Andy Staton, who's driven the longest to get here, because he came up from Rehoboth. And Andy is a board member and chair of the Grants Committee.
Thank you very much. It's hard to follow that. I was up at 5:30 this morning walking my dog and thinking today's the first day I had to wear a jacket. Good sign. But anyway, thanks, Stuart, very much for being here. I'm excited to be here. I'm more excited that you're here. To be honest with you, a year ago I was invited to be a part of the Grants Committee here at DCF, and I was no more excited than to see so many organizations come together as they develop their applications to have impact in our community and in our state. And so when they said, hey, would you like to get more engaged and more involved in the Grants Committee and eventually take on as the chairperson of the committee, I thought that's a terrific opportunity, because as we sat in the room, we listened to folks present, as we got to go out into the room and see folks waiting to present, we saw, hey, wait a second, you do this and you do that, maybe we should start to share the opportunity or share the opportunity to work together. And it was really, really a great opportunity to see organizations working together have a better impact. So we're going to take just a second to introduce everybody in the room, because perhaps today you'll actually find a partner that maybe you can actually work together and find some common way to have impact here, and perhaps find a way to put an application together. So and then we're going to move on pretty quickly so you guys can actually get into the meat of why you're here to learn. So start right here.
Priscilla Turgan, I'm Executive Director of Project Restart. We do re-entry of individuals coming out of state and federal institutions.
And my name is Robin Gott, and I'm the newly appointed Executive Director at Sojourners Place. And Sojourners Place is a transitional housing program. We have 50 beds. We provide services to re-entry participants, veterans, and just homeless men and women. Yeah, great.
I'm Mary Pat Widener. I'm with Nativity Prep School. Nativity Prep is a tuition-free day school for low-income, mostly minority students, middle school boys. I'm out of the adult office.
My name is Sequoia Rent. I'm the president of the Kid Kids Coalition, and I'm also
A little louder.
yes. Sorry. My name is Sequoia Rent. I'm the president for the Kent Kids Coalition, and I'm also representative for the Kent Community Garden Collaborative.
My name is Andrea Valentine, and I am Executive Director of Strive, How You Lead Matters, and we are an organization that partners with schools and community organizations to provide character-driven leadership culture building strategies for both school and community programs as well as athletic programs.
My name is Laura Sindoni. I'm the Director of Operations at the Summer Learning Collaborative, and we work with existing community-based centers that serve low-income kids to help them develop their summer programming.
Good morning, I'm Kate Hackett. I'm the Executive Director at Delaware Wildlands. We're a land trust operating within the states of Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland. We own 21,000 acres throughout the state, and we purchase land, protect it from development, and restore it for wildlife habitat, freshwater wetlands, and forests.
My name is Dr. Gary Mears. I'm a collaborator with the dental clinic at Wilmington Hospital, and what we're trying to do is to have a program for adults with cognitive disabilities. They are only afforded a screening once a year. This is adults with disabilities, a dental screening once a year, and a biannual x-ray. But there's no treatment that's funded, and I don't know if you know that lots of folks with disabilities, with developmental disabilities, especially cognitive disabilities, have a lot of dental problems, enormous dental problems, and it can become quite expensive, but unfortunately a lot of them don't get any care at all because they just can't afford it and insurance doesn't cover it. So that's what we're trying to do, come up with a way of helping to pay for folks with developmental disabilities regarding their dental care.
Good morning, Josh Thomas, Executive Director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Delaware. We're an advocacy, education, support, and housing organization for people living with mental illness and their family and friends.
I'm Courtney O'Connor. I'm also with NAMI Delaware.
Good morning. My name is Tatiana Palatko-Lin, and I'm the Executive Director of Teen Sharp. Teen Sharp is a college prep and youth leadership organization that seeks to prepare talented youth of color for top-tier colleges and universities, and we do so by accelerating their college readiness, connecting them to top-tier enrichment opportunities, and providing them with rigorous advising. And I'm here collaborating with Light.
Hey, good morning. My name is Van Hampton. I'm with First State Community Loan Fund. We're a community development financial institution, and we provide loan capital and technical assistance to small businesses and community organizations throughout Delaware. Our focus is women and minority-led companies. Typically, we work with businesses who can't go to the bank for traditional financing.
I'm Super Netich, Vice President of Development with Delaware Hospice, and we provide advanced illness management from serious illness on through death, and we continue to support the family and grief services after death.
I'm Carl Colantuna with the Salvation Army. We're celebrating 126 years in Delaware. We have a geographic footprint as the entire state. We have a reputation for basic human needs. We're doing that pretty much heads down. A lot of people don't know all that we do, so here I am. We do things like we have a women's shelter for women and children who are homeless. We have family services for all kinds of basic human need fulfillment. We have a senior center, a community center, and we have a 5-star. We just got our 5th star for our children's programs.
I'm Paula Savini. I'm the Community Relations Director for Catholic Charities. I tell you, Carl, will be celebrating 186 years. We provide many of the same types of services, basic needs. We provide shelter services. We are the Delaware administrator for the LIHEAP and the weatherization programs. We have behavioral health counseling and food assistance and a couple of other little things thrown in besides.
I'm Sarah Hutton from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Delaware. We're statewide, mostly known for child care and teen programs, but I personally oversee mentoring programs at a few of their club locations.
I'm Medard Gable, Executive Director of Pachima Terrace, which is the youngster in this room. We're only going to be 50 years old next year. We have a variety of programs in the peace and social justice area, 2 of which are, one has to do with returning citizens called Next Step New Beginnings that works with about 60 people recently released from prison. The other one is local economic development, primarily in West Center City and Quaker Hill area of town.
My name is Sandra Polito. I'm with Rodney Street Tennis and Tutoring Association, and we provide after-school and summer programming primarily for youth in the city of Wilmington.
I'm Meredith Stewart. I'm with Jewish Family Services of Delaware. We are a health and human services agency that provides mental health counseling to individuals and families throughout the state. We have 2 offices in Newcastle County, recently opened an office in Lewis about 6 months ago. In addition to mental health services, we provide support for seniors to help them age in place in their own homes, and advocacy and youth workforce development for at-risk youth, including those who have been previously adjudicated or those who have been identified with a disability.
Good morning. Reverend Shanika Perry, Bethel AME Church. I'm the executive minister. I oversee all of our youth programs. I'm also the chief operating officer for Delaware TV, DETV. And pretty much what we do is we spread positive news. We were sick of how Wilmington was portrayed, and not only locally but nationally, so we decided to highlight Wilmington and help change the narrative.
Nicole Friedman with the Levine State of Delaware. Been around for 125 years. We have 6 branches throughout the state. We stand for youth development, social responsibility, and healthy living. And the healthy living aspect is chronic disease prevention is where we're heading.
I'm Lisa Lessner. I'm representing 2 organizations here. The first is Leading Youth Through Empowerment, which is LIGHT. It's an after-school and summer program that's preparing inner-city, low-income middle school students for high-achieving high schools. And the other one is Innovative Schools, which is an organization that's bringing innovative educational programs to Delaware, including charter schools.
Good morning. I'm Martin Harrison of Habitat for Humanity of Newcastle County. We provide affordable housing for low and moderate income individuals and families.
Andrea Miller, I'm the grant writer for Children and Families First, and we provide a variety of behavioral and physical health services and case management. We have nurse home visiting programs for expectant at-risk moms. We have intensive outpatient. We have an inpatient down in Seaford, and 22 programs, and we're in all 3 counties.
That's great. Sounds like there's a tremendous amount of work being done here, and potentially some connections that could be made today. So feel free to connect afterwards and do some networking. Afterwards, there will be lots of opportunity for questions and an opportunity to answer some questions and things of that nature. But if I could, I think, Allison, we're going to, you coming up, right? So I'm going to introduce Allison Levine, who is here at the DCF. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications, and she's going to start to walk us through sort of the technical part of today's presentation. So thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And before we get started, if anybody in the back wants to move up closer, I'd say you can even drag a chair up to the end of the table if you want to just hear better. I know the blower here can be a little loud, it can block the noise, so feel free to move up.
We also do have some screens
Couple
that are
open
rather
chairs
light.
here.
So
If you're happy where you are, that's fine too, but just want to give you a chance. Sometimes it's hard to know.
Yeah, feel free to bring your chairs around.
And just yell if I need to be louder. I'm not always as loud as I should be, I know.
Louder.
Louder. All right, not a loud person. Well, okay, well, thanks. Thank you all for being here. As Stu was saying, we're really excited about this direction that we're taking. The Community Foundation in Delaware, this is a little bit of a different model for us. This is something that's going on all around the country, though, and all around the world. Community foundations are taking this new direction of helping communities use quantitative and qualitative information to build a community agenda and to help organizations work together to make the most of the resources that are available, including time, talent, and treasure. So part of our job is to help the community identify where the greatest needs are, but also to help you all work together and find each other and get started. So we are going to start with, are we going through the worksheet afterwards then? The actual application?
It's part of it. It's after a few slides.
Oh, okay. 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 So
This is what I did in the last program too. I talked so much, and then I was like, oh, I already said my slides. So, okay. So, our, the key factors for this particular grant. In the past, we have had collaborative grants for a long time, but in the past, we've required them to be statewide in some cases. This year, we're requiring them to be within one county only. You can be statewide, but you don't have to. So as long as you have two organizations that are working together in a real collaboration, then we want you to apply for this grant. When we talk about collaborations, we want to emphasize that we're looking for organizations to work together with truly collaborative goals. We don't necessarily want an organization that is just accepting referrals. That kind of doesn't count as a collaboration. We want some real interaction, sharing of resources, and leveraging of each other's resources, expertise, capabilities. So that is the technical part. The maximum request is $100,000. We typically give about $250, is that right, in the collaborative grants. And we want to give at least one grant in each county. So we do try to spread this around a little bit. What we want you to do is, and you're going to see within the body of the application, we want you to take the opportunity to use some data. And I think you're all familiar with this. This is where most funders are going. We want to see some metrics. We're not asking for just data. We really value your qualitative stories. We want to hear your qualitative information. We want to hear how you're affecting individuals' lives and how you're changing Delaware. But we would also like to see some numbers and how you're moving the needle. One of the lines that Stu says that I like is, we're not asking you to boil the ocean. We're just asking you to boil your community. So we don't necessarily expect you to move the needle at the state level. We're not looking for you to necessarily reduce teen pregnancy within 3 years on a statewide level. But we'd like to see how you're changing the story in your community. Okay, next. All right, these are the things that we don't support: endowment building, debt reduction, religious organizations for sectarian purposes, meaning we would support community causes from a religious organization, but not necessarily religious causes from that organization. We do not support annual fundraising campaigns or general operating expenses. Projects completed before the date of the grant approval. These can be ongoing projects or finite projects. We don't support sports leagues or clubs, individuals, special events, educational institutions, or capital campaigns.
Did you want to explain a little bit about the educational institutions that they can collaborate?
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you, good point. Some applicants might be collaborating with educational institutions, and that's fine. We're looking for, in that case, the lead agency. Essentially, the fiscal host would be not a school, but educational organizations can be participants. Does that cover that? Okay, so this is the first year we're doing an online application. I think it's a lot easier. I want to warn you up front though, there is not a save option. So please, it's not that long of an application anyway, but please, for your longer pieces, put them in a Word document first. It's not that much, but I would really hate for you to have to go back and rewrite it. We'll work on the save option for next year, but this is walking before we run. So, pretty self-explanatory. Program name, lead organization, contact person and title. When we talk about the lead organization, again, we want true collaborations, but that's primarily the fiscal host, whoever's handling the money for that. Address, your EIN, phone, and email.
I just want to explain a little bit about the importance of the accuracy and also the being updated about the contact person in particular.
Sure. I mean, you're going to be entering information this year, I assume, so it should be accurate. I think it should be accurate. That would be good. so that we know who to
If
contact.
anything changes, please be sure to contact Beth, or one of our staff. That way we're aware. If we were going to contact you for money, obviously you want to know. So.
Okay, so program budget. What is the total budget for the whole program? And then what is the amount you're requesting from the DCF? So you may be requesting the full program budget from the DCF. If your full project is $50,000, you may be requesting $50,000. So they might be the same. But if you're running a $500,000 project, that's here. And then you're requesting from us a maximum of $100,000. So that's here. And then county served by program, you can click one or all of these boxes or two. And that would be, yeah, if you're serving statewide, you can just click all three. So, and then your program start date. And if it has already started, then it's fine to have a date in the past. Okay. All right, I'm gonna read this because I think it's too small. What's that?
No, I was just saying, go by the bottom part for the very tiny print. That's why I blew it up.
Oh, okay. All right. So, program details. What is the need and value for the program? So what is the pain? What is the issue that you're addressing here? The DCF's goal is to fund collaborative efforts that will benefit residents. Briefly describe the program. Be sure to include quantitative and qualitative measurements and address objectives, strategies, target population, program locations, program start date, and anticipated benefit to the community. So objectives. What are you trying to accomplish and why? What is it that you want to achieve in your community? Why is there a need for your program? This is a good place for you to possibly use the data that we're going to talk about some more in a little bit. This is a place for you to use some numbers to represent what the need is, to show us what the need is, and then to ultimately show us how you're going to impact that need. And the strategies, how do you plan to achieve your objectives? What are some of the overarching strategies? How are you going to make this happen? Program activities, where will it take place? That would be what community, what specific locations, if you're working in specific community centers or specific facilities. Program start date, that's pretty much the same as we just said. When does it start? And what are the phases of the project, if you have phases of the project? And the anticipated benefit to the community. How will your program make an impact on Delaware community? So this is pairing with your objectives. So we've identified we have 100 homeless people in Wilmington. Through our program, we hope to reduce that to 40 homeless people in Wilmington, for example. Okay? All right. List the nonprofit organizations with whom you'll be collaborating and what role will each organization play. Again, this is where you want to make a point, be very clear about the different roles the organizations are going to have so that we're clear that it's a true collaboration. How will you evaluate the success of your collaboration? This question addresses both the quality of the collaboration. For example, we will be able to serve our clients better because each partner was able to focus on its particular expertise, as well as the programmatic sense. For example, how many more units of service delivery provided and how the quality of clients' lives will improve. So these include a little bit of quantitative and a little bit of qualitative information here. Okay.
And those 2 points are summarized at the bottom to, make nice and simple.
Okay, next one. All right. Over here. Can't read that far. All right. How will DCF funds be used? Again, if this is part of a larger project, what component of the initiative is going to be funded by the money that DCF actually provides? And what is your sustainability plan? If your intention is that this program will continue after this grant period, what is the sustainability plan? We've been asked frequently,
is this only for sustainable programs, or are short-term initiatives eligible? And yes, they are eligible. There is going to be some preference for sustainable projects. Ideally, what we would like to do is help seed initiatives that are going to continue to make a difference in the community going forward. But if you have a great project, we want you to apply. If it's a finite project, we want you to apply, and you would definitely be considered. And I think that Mary can talk about that in a few minutes also. Okay, other funding sources. This is the pretty standard one. Please include a list of all funding sources for this collaboration project only. Grants, gifts, in-kind donations, and loans with the amount or nature of the contribution. Also list applications that were not funded and applications that are pending with the requested amount and expected date of notification. Okay, standard stuff. All right, required signatures. From the lead agency, again, the fiscal sponsor, entering the name is the equivalent of a signature in this case, executive director and board chair. And then attaching the required attachments, letters of commitment from each partner agency detailing their role in the collaboration. This is something that's new this year. We want to hear from each of your partners that they're aware that they are collaborators in this project, and what their participation is going to be. How are you collaborating together? If this is if this is one of several collaborating partners and this particular partner happens to be just referring, that's fine, but we want to understand what the roles of the multiple agencies are. Okay? Budget for the collaborative project. This is your whole budget. You're attaching PDFs. Your most recent organization, budget, and balance sheet. Biographies of key staff members. Board of directors list with affiliations. And it indicates some of them are lead agency only, some of them are each partner agency. And your 501c3 letter. And we need those from each agency. For these, it will only take one PDF, so you'll have to combine them. For the previous slide, you can attach multiple PDFs. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to talk about Delaware Focus, but let me pause and ask if there are any questions about the form before we go ahead. Yes, ma'am, in back.
If you're
take the lady in the blue and then.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you're right together.
For the letters of commitment, do you want one from the lead agency as well, or is filling out the application enough for that?
That's a good question. I think that there should be one from
Which
the
one?
lead
Which
agency.
one were you asking about?
For the letters of commitment from each collaborative agency.
I think the lead agency should be submitting one. Is that correct, Mary Beth? Yes. Yeah. And it'll probably be.
We're designing some of this on the spot.
I don't know. I think it'll probably duplicate some of the language that you're including, but I think that'll be really helpful to the committee, and it'll give the committee a sort of a more complete picture.
And if I can, Allison.
Yes, please.
Part of the rationale is that we've had collaborative proposals in the past where we found out 6 months later, after we made the grant, that the partner agencies did not know that they were doing something. And so this is to say, no, we're serious about this. This isn't just, yeah. You know, Sally at ABC nonprofit is going to do something, and we'll send them, $1,000 to be our partner or something. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for real building. Obviously, we're at a time of stress in the system, and we're trying to find ways of enhancing everybody's ability to deliver.
And these may be relationships that you already have. A lot of them, they probably will be. You may look at what you're already doing and saying, hey, we're working with this agency and that agency. This is a collaboration. It's already going on. But we still want you to say, we're putting this application together and making this request as a collaborative group. And I'm sorry, you and the...
When you want to see the program's budget, if these funds would be used for an expansion to a new site, do you want to see the entire program's budget or just the expansion piece of the budget? Because the program we're going to be applying for exists already at some locations. This would be a new partnership,
and a new location. So I just didn't know what you wanted to see there for program budget.
Maybe
I would say both.
Mary.
I would say the program currently and then being spent.
Okay.
Think of some of this would be, so for a review of this, it would be useful to the committee. I'm speaking on behalf of the committee, though I'm new to this committee. But to say, this is what it cost us to run the core program, and now we're expanding. And so if you showed a budget for a startup site, you know, if your budget to run your program is $1 million, and you say all we need is $50,000 to run a startup, the committee might say, we don't get that. How does that work? Is that real? Or vice versa. But so just to help the committee, what the point on all of this is so the committee can understand and see the rationale. And that helps tell the story. That becomes an important part of the application.
And just to build on Stu's point, it might be in that kind of situation if you've already started up satellite programs similar to what you're starting up, to show the full program budget and to show this is what it cost us to set up at this location that we did in 2012. This is what it cost in 2014. This is what we're requesting to start up the next one, just to kind of anticipate what some of the questions might be.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is there any possibility of getting a copy of your slide presentation?
Yes, I should have said that at the beginning, actually. Everything is on our website at delcf.org/grants. The application, we actually are live streaming now. I put the video up from the Georgetown workshop in case we did a better job explaining there. And there's also an FAQ and the slideshow, and I feel like there's one more document.
At the same place where you actually apply for the grant, the files are all listed right there, so you have the links to it.
And Beth is your contact if all of that material doesn't answer what you need. Stu, would you?
Website address again?
DELCF, DELCF.org. / grants, thank you.
/grants.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Allison, can I get some clarification about the countywide versus statewide component of the grant? We work statewide, and the organization we are gonna partner with also works statewide. And our idea was to be deployed in one county, but I'm wondering if that's a limitation we're putting on ourselves, if we could apply for a program that is actually deployed in 2 counties instead.
I think you could certainly say that it could be deployed in 2 counties. That then comes to a question of, can the resources accommodate all of them? So if you want to use this particular grant request to focus on one county, you may be able to demonstrate a more concentrated impact.
Okay.
But if you can do 2 counties, why not?
Okay, perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the folks evaluating this going to have a metric that says we'd like to evenly or somehow distribute funds in the 3 counties? In other words, you know, if we're statewide, would it be better for us to be thinking about partnering with someone down south if there is a lack of programming down there? Or is each one just on the merit of the application itself until the money is gone?
Let me refer that question to the committee because I don't know the answer to that. Mary, do you have a?
There's no question that some of this is subjective. You've got a bunch of human beings looking at this, and sometimes we get in, well, probably more often than not, we get in lots of applications for Newcastle County and not so much downstate. But on the other hand, I don't love the idea of you're trying to jam yourself into something in particular in Kent or Sussex just because you think that will give that, you know, more credence. If you really want to do this in Newcastle County, I think you ought to tell us that.
Well, and if I recall last year, the largest grant, in fact, was awarded to an organization in Sussex. Exactly. Because really it came down to impact.
Right.
It came down to what did the collaboration effort look like, how did the resource sharing look like, so.
And the Sussex County one was very powerful.
I just wanted to ask, can we quickly go through the data, and then when Mary is speaking, then she can give you a little more insight, I think, into how the selections are made.
Right.
Because because
Same
otherwise I'm gonna
kinds of
keep
questions for-
just referring back to Mary.
Yeah.
So were there any other questions on the actual form before we move on? Yes, sir.
Not a form question, but are there a list of organizations that you funded in the past?
Yes, there are. Yes, and thank you. I actually should have mentioned that earlier. Some of the examples of funds, organizations we funded in the past, or initiatives we funded in the past. There was the Delaware Aging Network, which was a transportation program that involved lots of different senior centers and organizations. There was the HIV Consortium, which is actually still going today, right? It was a program that we seeded, and then it kept going. I think AstraZeneca ended up providing some additional funding down the road. What am I missing?
Is it all listed on the
It is all listed on the
Yes, the
website.
Domestic Hunger Coalition led by the Food Bank, Stewards of Children, which was a sexual child abuse prevention initiative led by the YMCA. Very successful with the Stand By Me financial empowerment programs. The lead agency was United Way. And he was speaking about, in Sussex County, La Red led a coalition. It's called the Sussex County Coalition, which they collaborated with ACE Peer Resource Center and Tap Faith, and they expanded healthcare services for the homeless population in Sussex. So,
But there's lots of information like that on the web.
Are you at a disadvantage if you're serving a smaller population, but a very focused population, and you have the metrics to show your impact? You know, should we not apply if we're serving 60 people a year versus 2,000? You know what I mean?
If you've got 4, I'm not so sure that collaborating with some other agency and everything, and you want to help like a dozen people a year, I don't know how we'd look at that. To be honest, I'm not sure we've gotten a lot of grants where it was that small. But, I mean, I don't think this year it's going to take a huge amount of time for people to do the application. Now, that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one doing it. But you know, if you've got a focus and you've got a collaborative bunch, you know, if you've got at least 2 organizations, then, you know, what's the harm of putting it in? And to be fair,
I'm sorry, 1 grant per county, though, right?
Organizations can only submit 1.
But you can be the lead agency on only 1 application.
But you only award 1 grant per county?
No.
Not necessarily. It's at least.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. We do at least 1 in each county, but generally we end up with more than 1. And I hope Stuart won't think I'm off the rails here, but occasionally when we have not funded something and we really felt bad about it, but somehow we just couldn't get to it, the Community Foundation does in fact have some control over monies that, or for example, a directed, a family fund. I mean, sometimes we actually tell other fund holders here about a project that we think it might be worth their looking at. So, you know, sometimes that has actually gotten people money that didn't come from the grants committee at all.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to pull back into Delaware Focus,
Do that,
and then we're going to come back,
and then we'll talk.
Mary's going to give you a lot more insight about what the committee is concerned about. Okay, so we're going to talk about DelawareFocus.org. This is our new initiative that we launched in October last year. Very exciting to us. We're working with an organization called the Center for Governmental Research, or CGR. Their website is cgr.org. They are an organization, a nonprofit based in Rochester, and they do this kind of work, community indicator projects, with several other community foundations around the country. The reason that we are working with this organization as a contractor is because we want to provide objective information. We're not research experts yet. This is, but what we also, the Community Foundation is going to be here forever. We're not here for 4 and 8 years at a time like some of the elected leaders. We have no special interests other than making Delaware a better place to live. So we are working with CGR, and they are helping us with the data. The data is all from already existing resources like the census, kids count, those types of places. The way it is selected, we have 73 indicators right now, and we're going to grow in the future. It is selected based on the quality of the data and how frequently it is updated. So we want to be able to show people in the community trends. So we don't want information that maybe is updated only every 10 or 20 years, for example, or never. We want something that's going to be updated every couple of years so that we can look at changes. So we can go through the next slide. Okay, she's right ahead of me. Okay, so the purpose of Delaware Focus is to drive community discussion, promote strategic planning and collaboration, and empower communities to make positive change. And these things are happening with support from other community foundations around the country. There are foundations that are helping the community look at the data and identify issues that they didn't realize were quite as pressing as they didn't realize. So there are one community, for example, by looking at the data and doing some analysis, the community identified that there was a need and a real opportunity to do some entrepreneurship and economic development programming. And they've been able to do that and get additional funding for it by showing the data, using the data to demonstrate what the need and the potential impact is. So this is where we would like to be eventually. We're not there yet. The Delaware Focus, the Community Indicator Project, is a first step. So eventually we would like to build this out and serve as more of a hub for community knowledge throughout Delaware, so that ultimately we can be learning from you and helping other people in the community benefit from that information as well. So why this tool? Talked about this a little bit, I already got ahead of myself again. It's objective data. We want to provide a holistic and systemic view. This data is all fairly high level. We're not going into a lot of detail. You all probably know the resources that have more specific, deeper dive detail, excuse me, in your own issue areas. This is very high level. We want to help people be able to look at the system as a whole. There's so many issues out there that are affecting each other, as we know. Education is affecting the job market is affecting economic stability is affecting homelessness and hunger. So we want to be able to look at all of those things together. Excuse me, just a second. So we want to be able to look at all those things together and see how we can start addressing some of those systemic issues at their root causes. And we also want to be looking at the trends over time. We talked about why, that's why we have the different data that's updated on a regular basis. And proven success, as I said, CGR has done this in a lot of places, and we've been working with them now for, I think, 3 years, and they are really doing a great job, and they're very thorough. The information is extremely well vetted. So this is putting the Community Foundation on the line, so we want to make sure that it's all accurate and as complete as we can. The features, I am going to just go through the site with you in just a second. We have 73 indicators right now in these 7 topics: children and youth, financial self-sufficiency, workforce and economy, quality of life, health, education, and demographics. And these categories obviously are not comprehensive. We couldn't get everything in as we start. These categories were selected based on research, data availability, and looking at what other foundations are doing and finding valuable around the country. All right, so we'll look at the site. Have any of you looked at the site yet? Okay, great. All right, I really love this site. I think it's very intuitive, and it's really cool.
You're gonna have to kind of move the screen a little bit.
Can you?
As we're going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not bad. It's pretty good. Okay, so this is our home page, And here in the banner, we're showing some of the, some highlighted data, and this is just sort of high-level data that we thought would be of general interest. And then we are, can you scroll down for me, Deb, please? We have an overview, a very brief analysis of the site data as a whole. One thing that we can talk about really quickly is that we do compare a lot, most of the data has, it's available at different levels, so we make it easy for you to compare state to national, in some cases even down to census tract level. And we also compare against several other communities. And those communities were selected based on a range of different factors, things like population, demographics, trends in the community, what kinds of changes are going on, all different factors. And it could have been lots of different places. There are lots of places we could have chosen. The ones that we chose were Rhode Island, Jacksonville, Florida, and Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so then we have the featured indicators, and I think that the best way for us to go through these is going to go back to the categories. All right, so we have these high-level categories, and within each one, it gets more granular. Could you click on children and youth for me, please? Okay, so for each of these categories in the blue bar here, you can click, and it gives you the next level down. This is the featured topics. These are things that we think are of general interest to a lot of people. And then here we have these, what are we calling them now? Topic areas.
Subtopics.
Subtopics. There's so many layers, we're trying to come up with different category names. Would you please click on family support? So we can look at family support, and then within family support, we have these 4 indicators. And within each category, we have additional indicators. So
Allison, can you read what those 4 are, just
yes,
in case people can't see
thank
that
you,
far?
pardon me. This is under children and youth, family support. We have children living in poverty by race and ethnicity, single parent family, single parent families by race and ethnicity. So over here, excuse me, these little arrows for each indicator as we go through the site, this is kind of a quick and dirty way to look at how things are going. This is, Stu's, how you doing? This is, so here we can see in general, single parent families in Delaware are increasing. Woo!
A little bigger.
Okay. So children living in poverty also increasing. And then in these ones that where it says not applicable, I believe that the change is not statistically significant in most cases. That's why it would say not applicable.
It can also say that if there's no way to list one, like for instance, we're saying by race and ethnicity. Well, there are so many of them. You know, one may be up, one may be down, so that's why it says not applicable.
Thank you. Good point. Okay, so could you, Deb, come back over to the drop down on the left? Actually, the way you're doing it is fine. Okay, so we'll come into one of the indicators. All right. I think you're gonna have to.
Just trying to make sure everyone can see. All right.
Okay, so for each indicator listed down the left side, we have an analysis. It's very high level. It's essentially just a narrative of the data. It's not, it doesn't have any political information, political leanings, it doesn't have recommendations. It's just very straightforward narrative about the data. And then we have charts, data tables, and maps. We don't have maps yet in all cases, but we have them for a lot. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the charts. Okay, so we have lots of different ways of presenting the data, and we invite you, we would love for you all to use any of this. If you can take screenshots, use it in presentations, use it in your research, in your grant applications, whatever it is, it's a free-for-all. Please take it. We want you all to use this information.
Question here.
Yes.
I was just asking, so I assume like when you, on the summary page where it talks about, or indicates that the trend is increasing, simply footnoting this site and
Yes.
that is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would acknowledge that it's from the Community Foundation website, that the DelawareFocus.org, we appreciate that, yeah.
And can I interject here also? If you've got better data, if this was created over a year and a half with a lot of people in the community participating, developing, these are the indicators that make sense based on, it was expertise from people like you all, some of you may have been part of it. But we will be publishing in October an annual update to this. And so some of the updated information is available, but make reference and say, and we also have data that shows even more that's entirely appropriate here. But what we're trying to do is say, let's look at the data and understand what we're trying to deal with. That's really
And in the grant applications, please refer to the DelawareFocus.org data, but add to that. If you have more, please build on it. We would love to see you use this just as a starting point. Yes.
Technical question.
Yes, ma'am.
1,500 characters is a very short amount when we're making these arguments. A lot of them are that short.
Yes.
3,000 characters is like. So when we make these references, do you want full reference? We can't hyperlink them, can we? I mean, do you want full reference or just?
You cannot hyperlink them. In response to some feedback we got at the previous workshop, we did add a place where you can add additional supporting information. We really don't want additional narrative. We would be happy to see graphics if you want to show us charts, tables, that kind of thing.
Endnotes or something so that we can keep it really short in the actual application.
I think that when we say to cite it, we're just saying according to DelawareFocus.org.
Okay.
So we're not looking for MLA. It's just very basic.
Okay.
According to Kids Count,
Okay.
2016 census data says. So very short. Okay, so the charts. This is really great. This is simple. When you want to compare different data against, if you want to compare different locations, you can click on all of these boxes and turn
say
on.
what each one shows again.
Thank
People
you.
can't see it.
The blue says U.S., orange is Delaware. This blue, dark blue, is Kent County. Dover here, it's gray right now. Newcastle County, Wilmington, Sussex, and then our comparison communities, Jacksonville, Rhode Island, and Richmond. So let's say that we wanted to look at how children living in poverty compares between the United States and Newcastle County. You can turn off those other elements
Did you see
by clicking on the boxes. And then you get a very clear comparison for those communities. And then say you wanted to compare to one of the comparison communities, we could click on Richmond. And you can see here that in Richmond, 2010 to 2014, the rate was higher than in Newcastle County, but lower than in the United States as a whole. And then, thank you, you can rest your cursor over any of the bars and it'll give you the specific percentage. So here it says the 2010-2014, which is what this section is, and we're resting on the Richmond cursor. The cursor is on the Richmond bar, so it pops up 17%.
And let me say, even if you're a little bit wonky, this is cool. The stuff you can do with this, and that's where you get Deb, to show you, and we're showing you more now. There's an amazing depth of data in here that, forget this application, that can be really helpful to you in all kinds of ways. And so I think we have not done an effective job of communicating what this is and how you can use it, but this is good stuff.
And this is all printable, downloadable. So very, I hope, user-friendly, and if you find ways that it can be more user-friendly, please let us know. We can't do everything yet, but we're constantly looking for ways to make it better. Okay, so have we looked at the charts, and we can move on and look at the data tables? This is just a different way of presenting the data, and in this particular data, scroll down just a little more, please. We can get more granular, so we can look at Newcastle County communities.
You do that by clicking, if there's a blue link where it says communities underneath the county, that's how you expand the city data that's available.
Okay, and then we'll scroll down a little more, and you can see for this particular indicator, we have the local data for Bear, Claymont, Glasgow, Hockessin, Middletown, Newark, Newcastle, Pike Creek, Smyrna, and Wilmington. So you can use all of that data and even look at how things are going within different parts of the county. And we don't have this level of drill down for every indicator, but we have it for quite a lot, and we're building those out too. And once we get to the maps, it gets even cooler.
Just a couple of things so that you're aware. You can see there's an orange box kind of in the middle that says jump to data. Some of them will just list two different matters. Basically what it's showing is that they'll have percent and then they'll have actual numbers behind it, or various years. The data is different for each table.
And Deb has made an impression on me by explaining how important it is to sometimes look at not only the percentage, but also the number, the actual quantity. One of the examples, I think, is if you have, one. So when we get into the maps, now this is a really good way to graphically demonstrate some of the issues you might want to highlight. So can we look at Kent County for this one? So you can actually click. Sorry.
Legend.
You want to look at the legend?
Yes, they see what it means.
Oh, pardon me. Okay. The legend up here. If you click on this double arrow, it pops out the side panel for the legend, and it shows you by color the density. This is childhood poverty. The density of childhood poverty in each of the regions, so you can see it by color. So this pale yellow is 14.8% to 15.5%, and you can see that's Newcastle County. The pale green is 15.6 to 19.7, and then the dark blue is 19.8 to 23.1% children living in poverty. So you can really very clearly see where the density of poverty is. And as we click further into the map, it becomes even more granular. When you rest the cursor over any one of these components, it's going to pop up the data in a different format for you, including the number as well as the percentage. So Deb is clicking down into the site, and you can see again here this particular area, and now the legend is changed to be more granular. This green area right here is 25.4% to 38%. Right now we are looking at census tracts. And then I think we can zoom in again, and there we go. And then it's giving you the community names here, and you can still see this particular one is kind of confusing to me, but this is just a very large census tract. So you can see again where is the density of poverty. You can see right here in central Dover and just south of Dover and northwest Dover, which you may know that already intuitively or by what you see in the community, but here's the data showing to you. And can you press the cursor over one of these areas again to show how that pops up the specific, I don't know what, there it is. So this is showing you Census Tract 412, 26.4% of children living in poverty, which is 311 children. And then it gives you reliability, about the reliability of the data. Can you scroll down a little more, please?
It's all the margin of error and statistical aspects, so.
So it's just showing you the different statistical significance. Thank you.
How many of you are pretty familiar with downtown Dover area?
Got one up here, yeah.
You take a look at this. I don't know how many of you can see the difference. On that first screen where we were talking about a whole statewide view, the top percentage was about 25%, maybe something like that. If you look at the legend now, the darkest area goes up to 76% poverty.
That's
so
this little pocket
that's
right here.
Downtown Dover.
And
New
then
Street.
Compared to this little pocket just north of Dover, which is 0 to 8%. So within that very short distance, you have a real range of, a real difference in the number of children living in poverty.
The big thing is this applies to grants. When you're looking at these, if you're not a data person, if you're looking at the numbers going, what is this? You can look at these colors and you can figure it out pretty quickly which areas are most in need. That's why the maps are so fascinating.
I think that we've covered the data on this particular indicator. Okay, and then in this area over here, we have a section for related content, so resources and related indicators. Related indicators, obviously, if you're interested in this, here's something else that you might be interested in related to that. Resources is going to give you other places to go for more detailed data. And this, again, is an area that we're still building out and would invite your feedback on. But this is a pretty good starting point for some other places to go for more granular data. And all of the sources for this data is included on the site, so when you are looking at a particular indicator, it'll say on that page where that data came from. Okay, I feel like I've covered most of it. What have I missed, Deb?
That's pretty much everything. I mean, there's a lot more to the website. Go through it. You can't break anything. You know, and it's fun. You just click around and it leads you somewhere.
How long has the website been up and operational?
October. It launched in October. And it'll be, some of the numbers are updated more frequently, but we're going to be putting out an annual update. We have a report. And we put out one report when we first launched the site, which is on here as a PDF. And then we're going to provide that update every year. But the numbers within the site are updated as often as they get updates from CGI.
Yeah, in fact, I just got an alert today that another set of indicators came out for, I think it was poverty and income levels from the Census Bureau. So we'll be updating, our CGR will be updating that for us. That's the report that we were talking about, the one that came out, and it was an overview of the state per topic, and then we're coming out with another one soon.
Now, you know, as an example on this, one of our models for this is the Boston Foundation, which started doing this 10 to 15 years ago. They now have 350 indicators they track. We've started slow. This is going to build out over time. And for instance, right now, as folks here know, I'm obsessed with a clean water indicator. And we've been talking to DNREC, we've been talking to a lot of other people, because that is a really hard indicator to figure, because each part of the state has different water systems. But like, what is the snapshot? When I think of environmental issues, one of the key issues is it safe to drink water, right? How is this practical? And the answer is it's different everywhere based on all kinds of things, and what you're measuring, what kind of bacteria, what kind of toxics or whatever. It's a really hard one to figure out, but DNREC is saying, well, let's see what we can figure out, because they'd like to have it too, and they don't quite know what they want to use. And I know you've been in recent discussions, and they're trying to break it apart, and they're scientists and that. But in any case, building up the data so that it actually reflects the data that people in each sector think is important data. And that the thing is here, if you're involved in poverty work, you know every piece of data that's on this website already. What we've done is tried to create a uniform place where you can find the poverty data, the education data, the economic development data, the blah, 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 so you can compare and contrast within and create a holistic view. And we're going, as I talked to you before about your being our partners, we're looking for advice about how to improve this over time. We've got a couple that we may be adjusting even in this round, and over time we'll be building it out and having more data. But you know, we're at least at the crawling stage, but maybe only at the crawling stage with this. And so you're using this, and you're telling us what's working and what's not working for you and your work is going to be big as we build this out over time. We are in discussions with a number of state agencies about partnering with them about their considerably deeper data sets. And they, as you know, the state has a hard time presenting that in an effective way. And as political administrations change, it becomes, you know, priorities change. And so some of the state agencies are saying, can we link with yours somehow? Because then we know our data set will always be available, rather than funding changing things over time. So we're building this. This should be a tool that you can use and that the state can use and the businesses can use and everybody else can use.
And to that point, if any of you have any questions, comments, just want to say hi, on the website, at the very top, there's a contact us link that goes to a few of us at the foundation, and we definitely respond. So, by all means, use that.
We also have Delaware Focus Facebook page and Twitter, so if you'd like to follow us, we would love to have you. I think I've said everything I can say about Delaware Focus. So are there any questions specifically about Focus before I hand it over to Mary? Okay, great. Well, if you think of anything, we're going to be here, so please let us know. Mary, are you going to come up and tell us about the grant committee? Thank you. This is the other thing that's on the website that I forgot, the rubric.
And I realize that most of you probably can't read it, but
we did the
that's why yes.
You have paper copies, and I'm going to hand them out. It's also on the website.
Okay, so I'm going to the other end of the spectrum. There's the focus and wonderful detailed information, and I'm going to talk about the 15 people that sit around the table, because that is the deal. What you submit comes to us. So Beth puts everything together and ships it out to us by email, and we have tended to break them down so that everybody can see all of the grant applications, but you're asked to review thoroughly only a certain group, because otherwise you need a whole lot more time than you've got. By the way, I'm not sure anybody's reminded you that the applications are due by the end of the month.
Mary, can you speak up just a little bit? Having trouble hearing you back here.
End of the month, you need to get them in. So we score them based on this. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And we get all of the scores into Beth. She breaks it down statistically in quarters and then sends it out before our next meeting so that we can all see what everybody else thought of each application that we looked at. And sometimes I find that there's an organization I'm particularly interested in that didn't end up being on my list. So I may review it, or I may give my thoughts to the people reviewing it, or I may speak up when the meeting comes around. Because obviously, if I have a piece of information that maybe they all didn't have, maybe I'll argue that it should get a higher overall score when we look at all of them, finally. So we have a long meeting. We break out into groups. We ask if anybody's looking to put in some information about one they can review, and then we finally decide on interviews. Occasionally, we ask people from the organizations to come, and we end up with generally 6 to 8. And then we finally reconvene and discuss the funding recommendations. And of course, it's interesting because if you've been in a group that reviewed a bunch from downstate, then of course you start advocating for those. I mean, these are human beings here, and we advocate for the ones that we've gotten, involved in reviewing and all that sort of thing. And eventually we have to start cutting back, because to say that you can apply for $100,000 is nice, and I wish to heaven we had more $100,000 chunks, which we don't. So, what was the highest amount last year?
100.
We really did give them 100.
Yeah.
We gave Lorette 100.
We did?
Yeah, we did. We did. Thank heavens we usually have all of this in front of us, because I the work. And that's why we're the grants committee. And if they really had something that they were worried about, or an organization they were worried about, probably we would have heard about it before the final recommendations go. Okay, so what are the kinds of aspects that you could focus on that will get our attention for your organization? Because what we're looking for are programs that are reasonable in scope, relevant to the need in the community, cost effective, and delivering measurable results. That, I realize, is probably the hardest thing for many organizations. It's not easy to measure your results and come up with data that we will be able to use for our wonderful new statewide data resource. Now, probably the first thing, which has been mentioned over and over this morning, is this whole business about a true collaboration. We are not looking for you're doing the work and somebody else refers people to you and that's all they do. We get enough applications from organizations that are collaborating that if you can't come up with a true collaborative grant, then you probably are better off to look for funding sources, to some of the other foundations. The Longwood Foundation, there are any number of foundations in the community that will take your application. We're really looking for an honest goodness collaboration. We'd like you to come up with data to substantiate the need. In the past, we didn't focus on that so much. And these days, we'd really like whatever data you could come up with.
And now you have a great resource for that.
Yes, and now you've got a resource that hopefully will be helpful. Okay, is the program clearly articulated? I mean, if we can't look at it and figure out what you're trying to accomplish, then that's not going to go well for the application. We like, mission and values articulated. Now, appropriate, measurable, and realistic goals, objectives, and outcomes. Well, that's easy to say, and I realize it's not easy to produce on an application which warns you, about this much space. But you do the best you can. And while you're doing it, I've always found that the best thing to do is some bullet points. And then you have a little bit of room in what you're allowed to articulate the bullet points, but you're better to give us clear, articulated goals, objectives, whatever, and make sure that you hit your bullet points, and then give us a little bit of narrative. We do care about the numbers you expect to serve. We do, on occasion, support grants which really don't benefit a huge number of people in a year, but they're really important, and it's a program that we really think makes an impact, and so that's okay. Feasibility, there's one. Do not tell us you're going to do this with this much money in this amount of time, because we probably can figure out that you're being a little overly optimistic, and we're all for optimism, but you have to be halfway realistic too. Now, one of the frequent weaknesses in the applications is that the evaluation methodology, what you say that you're able to evaluate and what kind of methodology you're going to use, has practically no relationship to the desired outcome, or you can't really tell whether the desired outcome is going to be measured properly by giving people a quiz at the beginning of the project and at the end. I know that's a little wishy-washy, but try really hard to convince us that the evaluation methodology is in fact going to relate to what you would like in the improvement in the community. Budgets. Budgets. Many of you work for large enough organizations that your budget is huge and 7 pages long. And I have to admit that each one of us probably do not spend a huge amount of time on a 7-page budget for a large, well-known organization. But what we do spend the time on, very nitpicky, particularly some of our board members who are way more, or committee members who are way more nitpicky than I, the budget for the program, the budget for the thing you're asking for money for. You better be pretty well detailed. Now, this is a program grant. We do have a grant cycle and everything where you get to ask for stuff. And we got really tired 2 years ago of people asking for new computers. And I think the reason we got so tired of that was because the amount of money they argued they would have to spend for these computers was way higher than several of our grant committee members knew you could get computers here, there, everywhere, donated, whatever. I mean, be careful with your budget. Don't put numbers that are guesstimates, and don't put high numbers if you honestly think you could get, things for less. Anyway, I'm not sure that made a lot of sense, but whatever.
Don't think Hilton, think Holiday Inn.
Well, that's a good point. But stay at the Holiday Inn. You don't need the Hilton for some of these projects. Okay, sustainability. Now that's, for a new program, even within a big organization, you have to convince us that if you use up our money, which we expect you to do, that there will be some available, or that you're somehow or another going to figure out how to get the next year's budget. Because if we don't think you can sustain it after our money runs out, then it's not going to get all that high a mark. Which will bring me back to this in a minute. We do like to see the board of directors and hope that they're committed, and of course we like to see the staff that's going to work on this project, because if you've got one person and you're arguing you're going to do this, then we may be a little worried. We do ask for other potential funders. And if you say, we're waiting to see if we get any money from you before we try anybody else, that's not terribly impressive. We'd like to see that you've at least considered going elsewhere, and there are other foundations who may have put in money or who may be willing if you apply to them. So sometimes you get in-kind contributions. We like to hear about that because it makes it more realistic that you might hit your goals. But let's talk about this for a minute. We keep arguing among ourselves that it should be a larger spread. We should have everywhere from 5 to 0. But the last couple of years, we've decided, in the end, the 3, 2, 1, and 0 are okay. Of course, if you're involved with an organization, then you just recuse yourself for that one. You don't review it at all. I admit that most of them seem to come out with a 2. It didn't knock our socks off, but we certainly saw the impact and were impressed by it. The question you asked earlier, it is true that if the program is not intended to continue after this grant period, it only gets a 1 for sustainability of the program after DCF funding. Some people argued it ought to get a 0, but whatever. We ended up giving it a 1 because sustainability is one of the 5 categories. You know, budget, for example. A number 3 for budget, documented clearly and accurately, is reasonable cost-wise and aligns with the proposal's narrative. Okay. The strength of the collaboration. The initiative does not include collaborations, or it's unclear whether the nonprofits listed as collaborators are even aware of it. Well, we should have solved that one this year by requiring letters from any of the other organizations that are not organizations. It's really, really crazy when you all of a sudden discover that this other agency honestly had virtually no idea what was really being presented. That's a little crazy. Budget, evaluation methods. Evaluation methods are practical but could be more thorough and or include better use of data. This time with the data in the Delaware Focus website, part of the website, we're hoping that we'll really get more data referenced in your applications, in which case, you know, you're liable to get a 3. We'll be really impressed. And that makes a difference. Okay, I think it would be more useful to go to questions after 1 or 2 more things. Spell check. Spell check. It isn't so much spell check, which is wonderful. It's that automatic, you know, you type something and the computer thinks it knows better. And it types into, you know, it types in something that is actually laughable. I don't know about you, but I work with all that sort of thing all day. I'm an attorney at Wilmington Trust, and I review trusts, all that sort of thing. And when you're writing emails and things back to the lawyers, you best be very careful that you are clear as to what comments you're making in your beloved documents, because otherwise they're cross. They don't like being told that I don't like something in there, or I want more of something in there. But, you know, spell check and filling in, you know, the autofill, best be careful. I feel bad for the fellow named Hickok at Wilmington Trust, because if you put in HICK and somebody's trying to send me an email, half the time you get the poor fellow named Hickok, and he gets the email instead of Hickok. Oh, you know, you just have to be careful, that's all. Yep, you need those of you who are executive directors but don't write the grants directly, get involved. You know, you're the ones with the common sense, and you're the ones that know the organization and what project you'd like funded. So if you have a separate grant writer, grant helper, get involved and make sure that person is reflecting what, you know, how you feel, because assumedly you're the one with the passion for the program or the extension, bless you, that you'd like money for. So show us your passion in the application as best you can in this much space. And I understand that it's not a lot of space. But we do have people in to interview. You know, we do, you know, with luck you'll get an interview, and then you can tell us a little bit more about your passion. Unless it was way less than 100,000. And there's no question that maybe you get half. Now, mind you, isn't there still a question that says if you get less than what you're asking for?
No, that's an interview question. that
That's
they're
an
fine with.
interview question. Yeah. If we can't give you what you asked for, what's gonna happen? And if you don't have much of an answer to that, then, you know, we'll have to think about that. But, oh no, it's definitely not all or nothing, not at all.
Thank
Yes.
If the organization has won this grant in the past, but we're asking for funding for different programming, is that part of the analysis at all?
I still
It doesn't disqualify.
No, it doesn't. Now, mind you, if you ask for roughly the same thing last year, I still think we have an every 2 years,
Not for this grant.
Not
So
for
it
this
still
one.
doesn't.
Okay, so if you've asked for money from us before, go right ahead.
So for the budget, are you looking at a 1-year project or like the funding to apply within 1 year and then the sustainability after the year? Could the funding be stretched out further than 1 year?
Let's see if I understand your question. We want a budget for the entire program. And if you think it's gonna take more than a year to even get it up and running, then I guess you'll have to tell us that. But we're only promising money, we're only giving out grants for basically 1 year. Yeah, so.
Does that mean that they need to use it within that year? I think that's part of the.
Yeah, we probably pretty much expect you to use it up within the year.
I can imagine, don't you, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I could imagine if somebody said this is an 18-month project,
Right,
that the
right.
committee might say, well, we could do that. So I don't think there's a hard
No,
rule
I
about
don't
it.
think there is.
If you said this is a grant to run over the next 3 years, I think the committee would be likely to say, well, that's not what we're looking for.
That's right.
But if it's 14 months or 16 or 18, the committee might well say, okay, let's keep considering that.
Right. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Just to build on that question, then, if the applications are due at the end of this month, when do you expect the award dates to be?
January 31st.
Okay. Late June.
The award announcements?
Excuse me?
The award announcements will happen January 31st, or disbursements?
Both.
Okay.
Yes?
So a similar question about sort of budget, but also talking about impact. So the projects that me and my partner organization are having in mind is really developing, launching a pipeline. So we are
launching a
pipeline from 7th grade to 12th grade working with young people.
Okay.
We are going to propose to start off and see how that would feel for 1 year, 14-month type of deal between 8th and 9th grade. But the outcomes that we're thinking about moving, we're talking about moving the needle and the indicators, are really going to be evident when the kids graduate.
Yeah.
Best. But then we can report on certain sort of intermediary, but the biggest, most impressive sort of why are we doing it all, we are not going to see until 3 years after the
But you're
project
going
is
to explain that to us, and you're going to tell us how you're going to monitor and your methodology for figuring out the big impact at when they graduate and stuff like that. You're going to have to explain that to us. What did you say?
Sustainability.
Well, yeah.
If it's gonna be 4 years.
I think that it gets to a really important point. We're not stupid about how you get results. We don't expect there to be huge changes. If you came in and said, we're gonna change the poverty level in central Dover, we're gonna cut it by 10% this year, I'd say that's just ridiculous. And in a smaller population, you might be able to have some impact, but more likely, you're gonna have to say, this is what we're trying to address. This is the strategy we're using. Here's why we're confident it would succeed. So, for instance, if you were doing mentoring, somebody's doing mentoring, we know there is huge research about the value of mentoring and changing young people's lives, right? And, a caring adult, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's been done, it's been documented, there's a database. So you come in with a mentoring program and you say, we're going to increase the number of mentorships by X to address this problem. Here's why we're confident it will succeed. At the end of that period, you say we increased it by X. Here's why we're confident that's making a difference in the thing we're doing. We don't expect a huge change in every indicator instantly. But you've got to have good reason to say to us, this is likely to make a difference.
Right, and that is the sustainability You're right.
And then what's the sustainable to keep it going?
Right.
And if you're doing a pilot, I'm gonna jump in, excuse me.
Please do.
If you're doing something, we're gonna get this going because if we're able to accomplish these things in the first year, then we'll be confident it's a go, and then we'll get more serious about the continuation. That's not an unreasonable approach either.
Right.
We would want you to be able to say, how will you know at the end of the year that this is a program that you will keep going? That makes sense. But if you say, we're gonna do this, if we can accomplish these things, we're gonna keep it going. If we don't, I would imagine the committee would take that seriously.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was at one time, I mean, I've been around the Community Foundation, it seems like forever. We had a 3-year thing. You know, come in, big proposal, big collaboration, tell us what you want to do over 3 years, we'll give you money the first year, and we'll not promise that you'll get it for years 2 or 3, but we will look very seriously. You'll come back at the end of the year, you'll give us your reports, stuff like that, and we will, more likely than not, give you funding for years 2 and 3. And we did that. That's not what we're doing anymore. That's not what this is. This is a 1-year grant. We're not promising another dime. Now, what happens after the year? I mean, I don't know. This is new. We've changed our focus. We've now got Delaware focus and all that sort of thing. So I don't think it's fair to say you can't ever get another dime from us, but I'm not at all sure we'll help you with the sustainability after the year. I'm not sure we will. Don't you think that's a fair statement?
Fair.
Yeah. We're a little new ground here too.
And again, do you mind?
Please.
We're also in the process of hiring a new vice president for community engagement and investments. And that person, just reviewing applications, getting ready to start calling people up on that. That person is going to help lead what the next iteration of our grants programs looks like. And we expect that person to be on. I don't know who it is yet. Still open. Although there are a lot of good applicants. In the next few months, that person will be on and help us think through, help the committee, board, rest of the staff say, where do we want to take this thing?
Yes.
What role does innovation play in your decision-making process?
Innovation. If you're collaborating with somebody to do something that's really, really new or innovative, to be honest, I think for me, you can ask Andy, I mean, it seems to me that we might really like that idea if we thought it was halfway reasonable. Not that, if you have this very grandiose idea, but innovation.
And it's grounded in somewhat data.
Yeah,
right?
Grounded somehow, but I would think, this state's got all sorts of issues and problems, and we could use some new blood, new ideas, new approaches to things. I would think that would be quite attractive to people.
And again, the collaboration piece is a big deal. Right. That's why Lorette was so successful last year.
Yes.
They built on what they had done in previous years. They looked at how they could collaborate amongst other organizations, and they came together and they met others and said, wow, we can do this together. They started to share resources within, they started to share buildings and staff members. They really built year after year. I mean, they blew everybody away. It was such a great presentation.
It was a great application. And they're doing great things.
Great things.